I have here with me the second edition of the Next World Tarot by Cristy C. Road, published by Silver Sprocket, which seems to me to be more widely available this time around to purchase from. This is the first edition and everything else is the same except for minor differences. The book for the second edition, in case you're wondering, is now inside the box itself, which is great because it's more practical. I tend to lose track when they're separated like this. Having said that, I think the thickness of the cardstock have taken a hit to give a bit more room for the book here. So let's just quickly run through the basic, very minor differences. So the box is only slightly thicker, and so because the book is in there, the deck is actually thinner, and when you touch it, you can it's almost immediate, the sense that the cardstock's thinner. The box, everything else is the same except for the barcode there. No barcode here in the self-published first edition. The box is slightly more matte, as you can see in the second edition by Silver Sprocket. This is a bit more, not glossy, but you can see there's more sheen. The hue of the color is slightly warmer in the first self-published edition here, with a bit more peachy undertone or overtone. This one's a lot cooler in hue, so I'm not quite sure if that's apparent there in your screen. So that's basically it. Let me see. Everything else is the same. Yeah. So, and then let's go to the book, just the size, as well as the cover. Again, the running theme of more glossy, which is not necessarily a bad thing. More matte, which is not necessarily a good or a bad thing, it's just different about that. And I think to save space, what they do is eliminate the page, so everything else is the same page for page. From what I can see, if I miss anything, feel free to let me know. So this is in case you're wondering. That is not to say that this is necessarily the most important thing in the deck, but you know, people are wondering. So page per page is the same, except that to save space, there's no pages. So here it says 2017-2018 in the second edition here. The Art of Cristy C. Road. Everything else there. And here is 2017 here, the first edition self-published. 2017-2018 here. This one is printed in China. Doesn't say where this second edition is. The second edition is printed in China, I'm sorry, that's what it says there. And then it says Silver Sprocket catalog number 94. Wholesale inquiries to Silver Sprocket. Interior design, cover design, editing. Interior design, cover design, editing over here. This one is printed by Shuffled Ink, Orlando, Florida. Here it is printed in China. So you look at here. So it ended here with for far too long, for far too long. Started here, terrace down over here. The only difference is that there's no pages here. So, and of course the font is smaller, right? So on to the cardstock, which is basically the only major difference. This one, as you can see, is more matte, but it also has that feeling of naked postcard paper, the cover of a paperback novel type of feeling there. So it's thin, it's not glossy, but I'm not quite sure if it's laminated or not, but it feels like it's unlaminated. Here it's thicker, it's more laminated, and it's much more conducive to overhand shuffling for obvious reasons, because they glide against each other really well, as you can see. Because they are more high sheen, they're glossier. The only downside with this cardstock is that there's a lot of, there is this kind of not chipping but cracking along the edges. Let me show you one of them. I can't, like this one here. It's even before I touch them, the cards have all these little cracks at the edges, and which a lot of people found quite unappealing. So like over there, can you see that? Let me just put this down. There's a chip there. See, there's a crack, like a chunk, like bits of chunks of the edges are cracking from the top all the way down into the cardstock, from the lamination down to the cardstock. So it's not quite chipping in the traditional sense of the word, but and the more you shuffle, the more they crack. So there's all that kind of like a crack on the wall all along the edges. So other than that, and it has a smell as well, which to me is not a big deal, but the cracking was a little bit unsettling, because you're thinking, is the whole deck gonna fall apart before I even shuffle it? But so here, if you can see, it's not as glidey against each other. So when you overhand shuffle it, they come in more in clumps. As you can see, they're huge clumps because they tend to, the friction, there's a lot more friction between the cards. However, because the cardstock is so much thinner, I can do this in a way that I can't do as well with the first edition self-published version of the cardstock that is printed in Florida. So it's very easy to do because the cardstock is really thin. This one is printed in China. Let's move this the other way around like this. So this is how I shuffle this deck for the moment, and they're still pretty tight against each other with lots of friction. And so it's just too clumpy. It's just way too clumpy to shuffle it overhand, and I have to shuffle it this way because there's no way I can reach this way. And so like all matte cardstock, you'll have a bit of scuff marks that looks a bit shiny scuff marks on the edges, because that's normal. That's what usually happened with matte cardstock. As the matteness of the surface is slowly worn out, sort of revealing a bit of the shiny under part. 1 second, let me show you. Lighting isn't ideal for me to show you, so I don't think you can see it as well here. Yeah, you can barely see. There's basically shiny scuffs along here as you, as the surface of the card, the matte surface of the card, whether it's laminated or not, is rubbed against each other regularly during the course of shuffling. Very, very thin. But because the deck is so huge, it's probably a blessing when it's so thin like this. Overhand shuffling is much better. They glide, but let me see. Yeah, I mean, it's thicker, but so it doesn't, I want to keep this in order, so I'm going to separate them like so. Again, see, glide here. Not gliding there, you can see there. Yeah, so the whole deck move on the right there. So that's the only difference really, is in the cardstock, thinner and more matte, but feel very naked, very much like a stack of posters. So I'll stack them like so, so you can see. It's basically the thickness of the booklet. So yeah, so that's how much you can see there. That's basically how much thicker it is there. There. Pretty much about the thickness of this book, more or less. Yeah. About this much thicker, or about this much thinner, this new second edition deck. So that's the Next World Tarot by Cristy Sea Road, currently published by Silver Sprocket, and very widely available, as well as wildly available, I suppose. It's one of my favorite decks, and I've spoken about that, and I will probably speak about that further sometime this year. Talk to you soon. Bye.